I'll get started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Anna Knight. I'm a financial planner and I manage your pension, and I've been doing so. I think I've been working with Farnborough for, I don't know, Terry, it's been like 20 years now, it feels like. It's been forever. So what we'll do today, because I haven't been in to see you guys, normally I would come in once a year. We'll do a recap of the pension and we'll talk about some money subjects. Today what I'll do is I'll literally do a recap of your pension. And I do have a little bit of a presentation that's going to follow that, but I might have to shrink it to make sure you guys finish before 1, okay? But as I'm chatting, please come in. Let's keep it as casual as possible. So if you've got any questions around money in general, feel free to ask me. And I'll give you a little bit of a background on myself, Mackenzie, who manages your pensions. And that's about it. Any questions for me before I get started? And my team member is here to record it, just so that whoever missed it, we're gonna share it with everybody as well. Any questions? There's gonna be a quiz at the end, by the way. Okay, so who is a member of your pension as we speak right now? Quick hands up. Okay, so just a quick recap again. So your pension includes a 2% contribution by Farnborough. Let's word it the other way around. Your pension starts with you contributing 2% of your pay per week. It comes out of your payroll. And then Farnborough contributes 2% to that, okay? Your pension is what's called defined contribution pension. And what that means is that the Farnborough is contributing a set amount, but it's up to you guys of how you want to invest it, okay? And that's how I come into the picture. So instead of me coming here and giving you guys a booklet to say, hey, go figure out what you guys want to invest in. That is why usually I'll have a conversation with each one of you to figure out, to give you an idea of what it is to invest, and this is what we're doing today, you know, to be able to understand it a little bit, and then help you to make the appropriate choice, and then also to come in and give you guys a recap of what's happening, okay? Who is an absolute investment expert in the room? No, don't point at me. No, I'm talking about you guys. Who knows a little bit? Like a 1 to 10, like a 2. Hand up, okay? Who knows like a 6? Okay, there is no such thing as a silly question, so please just shout any questions you might have, okay? So the pension administrator is Keybase Financial, is one of the largest financial companies in Canada. And they're part of the Power Group. Just give you kind of an idea. Mackenzie is part of the Power Group, Power Corporation of Canada, which includes Investors Group, Mackenzie, and Investment Planning Council. And that conglomerate manages about $1 million just under IG Wealth, about 198,000 clients for Investment Planning Council. This is a quick snapshot about me, but you see me in person. I've been in business for a while. We can skip all that. I'm a financial planner. What that means to you guys is I help you, and that's the service that's available to all of you guys as employees of Farnborough. I can help you create a game plan to where you are today, to where you want to go, whether it's retirement, saving for your first house, making sure that you have life insurance in place, making sure you have powers of attorney in place. That's the second part of today's presentation. We're going to go through what I normally go through with my clients in my offices. So I'm going to make it quick. I'm going to make it about 20 minutes. There's going to be a bunch of questions where you might roll your eyes, go, Anna, seriously? But it is what I do normally for my clients. I kind of make sure that all the aspects of your financial well-being are looked after. So, okay, from mortgages to insurance to investments, through anything in between, okay? I've been in private practice for about 20 years, Terry, 20-something years. I started when I was 10. And I've been working with Terry for pretty much just as long. Actually, Terry and I met, just to give you guys a little bit of a background, Terry and I met years ago when I used to teach retirement planning courses at a school board. So that's how long ago we've met. I think it's before I have kids, and my kids are taller than me, so that's how long it's been. In terms of, I'm going to start with some basic concepts. When we're talking about setting money aside, because I want to give you guys an idea of how things would look like. If you're talking about, let's say you're in your 30s, and you're going to say, okay, Anna, how much money can I grow? Can my money grow over time if I just save $100 a month? okay? $100 a month, it's what, one dinner these days? If you go out to like even anywhere with two people, right? McDonald's, right? Especially if you have a family of 4, that's $150 right there. Just a McDonald's trip a month, right? So saving $100 a month, if you break it down, it's $50 a week, right? And if it grows at a 6% rate of return, in 10 years, that's about $16,000 of savings. Okay, we're not talking what are we going to do with it. We're not talking that to be retirement money. But I just want to give you a concept of money growing over time and compounding over time. At the end of 20 years, that's $46,000. At the end, at retirement, so we're talking about 35 years, it's about $140,000. Okay? I don't think, it would be easy to retire on $150,000. So I think if we're planning for retirement, $100 a month probably is not sufficient. But let's take a look at something like $600 a month. So I just want to show you guys two extremes. If we're saving $600 a month, at the end of 35 years, that's about $844,000 at a very modest rate of return of about 6%. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, that means your money is compounding, it's growing, and you're also setting money aside. So your pension could be a huge part of that, right? So think about your monthly or annual salary. What is 2% of that? Right? So, and then you're adding another 2%. So you essentially would be setting aside 4% of your pay, and it goes into your pension without taxes. So let me rephrase this. You're actually getting a tax break because that 4% is reducing your taxable income. So then there's a little bit of less of a tax deduction being applied when you're getting a pay. So very often when you start contributing through your pension, you're not going to really feel a huge impact on your actual pay because you're getting a bit of a tax break. Okay? And this, if you guys have been doing this for a while, this is not nothing new. But for those of you who have not, I just want to kind of give that idea as well. Your defined contribution pension, essentially, this is a visual of what it looks like. You guys would contribute, Farnborough would contribute. You have investment returns that are contributing to this as well. And then you have a tax relief because, as I mentioned, you have a tax break at the time of contribution. All together becomes your bucket for retirement, okay? Quite often I get asked, Anna, what can I take this money out? Yes, you can, especially your component, that's the employee contributions. That is something you can access at any point. The only issue, you have to pay taxes on that. So let's say you build it up to $10,000, you want to take $10,000 out, but you're still making the normal salary, you would be taxed as if you are making additional $10,000 for the year. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Any more questions on the structure? This saves me a lot of time when we meet individually. In terms of risk and reward, you'll see in the presentation I'm going to do in a second, we're going to go through this again. But if you're very new to investing, there is 3 buckets you can invest in. So the first bucket is, and I don't know what I'm going to do. Whoever answers gets something. I'm just thinking what that's going to be. Ian, what are you offering today? I'm just joking. Okay, what's the first bucket we can invest in? It's on the board, but what's the first bucket? No, the lowest risk and lowest return bucket. Cash, which is your bank account essentially. What is the current yield you're getting on your bank account? 0. Yeah, I was going to say it's not 1%. Yeah, so let's say it's 0.5%, right? Yeah. Do you guys know what the inflation was last year? 6. Right? So 6, which is inflation. Inflation is increase of the cost of living essentially. So our cost of living went up by 6%. Your money in the bank account went up by 0.5%. So you are losing over 5% every year if your savings were sitting in your bank account. Is that a good way to grow money over time? Right? I highly doubt we're going to be able to go anywhere where we're saving money and the money is declining in value every single year. Okay? So that's probably not a best spot to have a lot of money or money for long term. Okay? The other two areas you can invest in is bonds, and there's a variety of bonds. I can do a 2-hour course just on bonds. But in a nutshell, it's, let's say I wanted to, or John wanted to borrow money for XYZ purposes, and he owns a corporation. He can issue stocks, or he can issue what's called a loan. So I'm going to lend John the money. He's going to promise me a 7% return, and he is expecting that I'm going to honor that commitment, and that loan is for 10 years. So bond is a loan instrument, essentially. Average return on bonds, somewhere in the range of 4 to 6%. Okay, so it's a little bit better than cash. There's always things like risk of default. In my example of John being a business owner, his business could go into default. I'm sorry.
I knew that was coming.
I know you knew that was coming.
Set you up.
I know. John's business is going, I don't know. So there's always concern of default where your money could be at risk. But you would get paid as a bond holder, you would get paid first before any shareholders. And shareholders is what you consider if you own a stock, which is an ownership of the business, right? So I mentioned John, the business in the example, sorry, John, could be issuing either bonds or stocks. So another way he can raise money is he could issue a percentage of the ownership of his business in stocks, right? So I'm talking about either a private company or a publicly traded company. So what's traded on the actual stock exchange is stocks or purchases or the ability for you to own part of a business that's traded on a stock exchange. So what's an example of a stock that we're very familiar with in Canada? Bell Canada, Tesla, what else? TD Bank, what else? Give me more examples. Royal Bank. Ladies in the back. The row in the back. CN-Rail, Sobeys, right? Rogers, Apple, right? So what we want to understand, and on average, the way you make money with ownership of a business, you're going to make money in terms of, especially if it's a more matured company, most likely you would get some kind of a dividend, which is percentage of the revenue distributed to you on a monthly or annualized basis. 2, you're gonna actually grow as the value of the stock grows over time. So that's how you make money in the stock market. On average, you can probably generate somewhere between about 8 to 15% per year in a stock portfolio. Okay, depending on what's happening out there, but that's on average. And then if you're buying into smaller growth-oriented stocks, that return might be a lot higher. You might be getting 20, 25%, but again, there's more risks involved, right? Because if we're buying into a business, there is the risk of something happening to the business not being as profitable, the business not being managed properly, the business having patents that expire or not being innovative enough, or being affected by geopolitical situations. So there's a lot to consider, and oftentimes I find people invest in the stock market just by a tip, like a Tesla is an example. Bitcoin was a huge example last year, right? What was the average decline of Bitcoin valuations in 2022? Around 80%.
Yep.
Okay, so if you had all your money in something that's high risk, right, and you really didn't understand what it is that you actually purchased, and then it declined by 80%, you would be like, I am never investing again. But truly what you were doing is gambling. Unless you're educated, meaning you understand the business you're buying. So one rule of thumb is buy businesses that you understand. If you're a Tesla driver, buy a Tesla stock. Like to my kids, I always translate, buy the businesses that you get. So my kids will have a Home Depot because they like doing little things. They'll have a dollar store because they, every allowance, they go to the dollar store and buy their little things. Amazon is a huge stock. It's easy for me to explain to them what Amazon stock is, right? So buy businesses, or I might highlight to you businesses that you have in your portfolios that have stocks that you can relate to. Does that make sense? Okay? And your pensions, the way they're set up, you have me that's providing the advice, Mackenzie that's providing the actual stock picking or bond picking or cash picking. So you guys essentially are on autopilot. And my job is to translate that information to you guys, okay? But essentially within your pension, depending on the risk or how much risk you're willing to take, you're going to probably have a little bit of cash. You might have some bonds, and you're going to have stocks in your portfolios, okay? So that's why I'm highlighting this so you guys understand when we're looking at your investments inside of your pension, what it looks like. So this is an example of a portfolio that could be in one of your pensions, right? If you look at your statement, you're going to see Mackenzie something, something, something. Let's translate what that means. So when you see the term moderate growth, as soon as you see anything that says moderate and growth, it will tell you two things. What are the two types of investments that you think are in that portfolio?
Bonds.
Yeah, and the second one? Growth is stocks.
Yeah.
Right, so bonds and stocks, right? So what percentage of each? Here you can see 40% is fixed or bonds. It's a technical term. And the remainder is in different industries in the stock market. So you can see the numbers are lower. Year to date that particular portfolio was down about 10%, okay? So when we're talking about your pensions, you are investing in stocks and bonds. That's really all I want you to walk away with, okay? And my job is to make you understand what stocks and what bonds and what combination is appropriate to you guys. So I don't give you the book, I actually explain it to you. Okay, another example, this is a little bit more aggressive. This would be primarily stocks. There is 20% in bonds, remainder is in stocks. It gives you an average rate of return of 4% per year over the last 3 years, but again, it was down about 10% in 2022, okay? So that's how to translate those statements that you guys get, or you guys usually have logins. So those of you who have the pensions, you can log into your Keybase account, which is the company that I work through in terms of the investments, and you can see, okay, what do I have? How does it make sense? And I'm always available for whatever reason. If we have not connected or you haven't had an opportunity to have a meeting with me either before this or after, you can always reach out to my associate Maria, and she can set up a quick chat either by phone, Zoom. Sometimes I do come into the boardroom and do a couple of meetings back to back, so that's always an option as well. Okay? Any questions on this? Okay, ready for push-ups? Okay. John, are you ready? Are you ready?
Of course.
Okay, perfect. So how are we doing for time, guys? Just so. Perfect. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through with you what I normally go through with my clients in my offices. So this is a very skimmed down version of it, but it might ask you some key questions. And the objective of this is for you guys to have you guys think about all the areas of money that I believe you should have in check or in place in order to have the concept of peace of mind or harmony around your wealth, okay? So I'm gonna hand out this. This is for you. This is not for me. I have pens as well. Make notes, use this, and then we can always have a conversation how to follow up with this. Or if you're working with some other people already, just make sure that you take action with this, okay? So I'm gonna just pass it along, and I'm gonna start on this side too. I'm gonna keep one so I know what I'm talking about. And now things are going to get interesting because we've got 20 minutes to get through this. It usually takes me at least an hour. Oh, sorry, right here. Sorry, I'll take some, Sandra. Pens.
Thank you.
I hope there is enough. Okay, perfect. Did I make enough copies? I hope so.
Anybody else need a pen? You need one?
There's more, yep. I think I might have more in my bag. Whoops.
Okay.
John?
Is there any more copies?
Is that all the copies, Sandra?
Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay. Does everybody have a little handout? Would you mind?
Yeah, how many more do we need?
Okay.
One more? Do you need one more?
So I'm going to go through these points, so you don't have to read. You're just going to have to answer eventually. Okay. So in my years of doing this, here's the 3 things that I believe you have to have in place in order to achieve harmony. And I'll read it. I know it's a little hard to read. We need to have specific things in balance. We need to have specific things that we plan for. And we need to have specific things that we have in place in order to protect our families and protect our wealth. So let's go through them quite quickly. And as I'm going through it, you'll see that that's translating on your sheets. You have the balance section, the protect, and the plan section. So the first part is, what do we have to have in balance? So the notion of balance has to do with the different aspects in your life that I believe you have to have in balance and in check, so that you're moving towards your plan and you're moving towards your objectives, whatever your financial and life objectives are. So the first thing is having an idea of your income and expenses. What do you bring in on a monthly basis, and what are your expenses? And if you don't have a good understanding of what that is one of your first items on things that I suggest you accomplish. It's no different than hiring a trainer and they're trying to help you figure out either what's up with your health, or maybe you want to lose a little bit of weight or gain some weight. The first thing they're going to ask you is, what are you putting into your body and what are you burning? This is no different. What are you putting in your body and what are you burning? Okay? What you want to derive it is what I call a run rate for your household or for yourself. Okay? What is your total monthly expenses versus your monthly income, and then circle that number. Okay? You also want to break it down to have an understanding in terms of what are your essential expenses, what are the things you have to spend money on, what are the example of essential expenses?
Mortgage, food.
Food?
Bills.
Bills, but what kind of bills?
Food.
Food, but like food can be negotiated.
Insurance.
Car insurance, right? Car insurance, home insurance, transportation, water, power, gas. Some bills could be like, maybe bills we need to reorganize a little bit, right? But those would all fall into your basic and essential expenses, right? So you want to circle that number. Let's say it's 3,000, 4,000, whatever that number is. That is money you have to generate no matter what's happening, just to be able to keep the little lifestyle that you have. The second part is your wants, or your other things that you're spending money on, or discretionary expenses. This could be your debt repayments. That's why I said bills, depending what they are, right? What are the debts that you're paying? What is the entertainment that maybe you're not even paying attention to? And are you partaking in any savings or anything along those lines? Those are just examples of wants or discretionary expenses. And when you look at your budget, and it could be one or two things. I have a lot of money left over, but unfortunately with the higher cost of living, we're more and more so seeing the opposite of not having enough, right? So any ideas what we can do if we're in this bucket here? Come on, work with me here. Are we going to be doing push-ups? Let's go. What are some of the things we could do to rebalance this, to bring it back to that balance?
Cut back.
Cut back. Where can we cut back? Food, LCBO, right? Drugs. Okay, let's cut the drugs part from the video. We could be also, in some cases, our living situation has to be adjusted. The basic of the house we're living in, maybe there needs to be a readjustment there, a readjustment of expectations, a readjustment of how much it's costing us. So sometimes it has not, your discretionary expenses is easy to cut down, or give yourself a budget to say, okay, I'm only going to go out for dinner because it's getting so expensive once a month, and I'm going to give myself, 100, whatever the budget is. So that's easy, but it's harder to look at your lifestyle to say, where else can I cut, because I still don't have enough. And sometimes that is making the hard decision of downsizing, right? Maybe rent, like whatever you have to do sometimes is making those key adjustments, right? Maybe that car payment you can no longer afford. Maybe you need to make some adjustments there. Maybe, the extracurricular activities for your kids that you consider your needs, right? You can no longer afford, maybe you need to make adjustments. So to me, the needs expenses is things that provide you food and shelter. That's it. Everything else is negotiable. Everything else you can adjust. And sometimes the food and shelter, you can also make some changes. So the needs and the wants, or having your balance in check, is absolutely crucial, because without it, it's extremely challenging to make any other decisions or be able to kind of go towards any goals. And this is an average of, I think right now some of these expenses are higher. So, it is suggested with the house prices in Toronto, this is why I'm saying it like this, it's suggested to spend 30% of our net income, so after-tax income, on housing. Okay, is that realistic today? Right? Debt repayment being 5%. If you have credit card debts or debt at high interest rates, that might be a lot more than 5%. But this is what's suggested. So if you take your whole net income, what is the percentage that you have going into these categories, and how does it compare to what's suggested? I'm not saying this is for everybody, but it just gives you a guideline of where you fall into. Does that make sense? Okay. And who runs a budget? You can raise your hand up. Oh, we have 3. Yay! That's better than none. Oftentimes it's none. Risk and reward. So that's the next area we want to have in balance. And this is the notion of, the investments that you have, are they allocated appropriately so that you are having your money work for you? So if you have all the savings in a bank account and inflation is 6% or 7%, and the money is growing 0.5%, I'm going to argue that that's probably not the best allocation of your money, right? So you want to understand where do you fit on the spectrum, and you want to have an optimal balance there, okay? And that's something that if you work with somebody, they can assist you with. But you want to make sure you have that in balance. Any questions on that? As I said to you, I'm going quickly today. Next area we want to look at is, and this is something I get asked, there we go. I get asked for quite a bit. Anna, how do I balance this whole debt repayment versus building for the future, right? I have some debt, I have a mortgage. Oftentimes we want to look at is trying to save a little bit at the same time having a debt repayment strategy. So the way we accomplish that is take a piece of paper, list your debts, and list the interest rates for them. And what I would highly suggest is either find ways to minimize your interest costs, and there's tons of strategies around that, or figure out a way to tackle the debt that's at the highest interest rates. What is the debt that would be considered usually the highest interest rate debts? Mortgage, credit cards, or loans? Credit cards, right? So in simple notion, if you have credit card debts, you might want to try to figure out a way to consolidate it into your mortgage or into a loan. And if there is no option for that, that is the first debt you want to tackle, right? But at the same time, if you don't start setting money aside into building for the future, or the fundamental to me, which is a cash reserve, soon as you have an emergency, what's going to happen? And you don't have any backup. You're going to go back into debt, right? So that's why it's crucial to do a balancing act between paying off your debts and setting some money aside, building for your future, or creating a cash reserve, or anything along those lines. So as you're going through this, take a moment before I go to the next section and circle your answers. So the first question on here is, do you have a good understanding of your monthly cash flow? Circle yes or no. Again, this is for nobody except for you. This is like confession to yourself. How do you manage your cash flow based on needs versus wants?
How do you answer yes or no? Yes.
Which one is your driving force? I want, like my child would be, I want. I'll be like, I need, right? I think most adults function on a needs basis versus want basis most, right? Except
Unless you got
Ian.
a lot of extra cash floating around.
I was waiting for a smart comment from you. Next question. Do you understand how to maneuver the risk and rewards in your business, your investments, and your savings? And be honest here. It's okay. Do you have a debt repayment strategy in place? If you answered no to any of these questions, take a moment and write down, what are you going to do about it? And nothing to do with me again. Just put down contact the bank, call my credit cards, create a budget, whatever that is, and then give yourself a deadline, because this becomes your action plan. Oh boy. Because I really want you guys to walk away with this is, and I'm sure you guys do courses for different things. One downside of doing courses is if you don't do anything, at least one thing from what you've learned, you're not really going to move forward in anything. So you want to make sure whatever we're talking about, you take at least one action. Is that fair to say? Okay. So next thing we want to look at is protecting. What do we have to have protected so that our financial well-being, our families are looked after? The first thing we want to protect is protecting our cash flow. And what I mean by that is we want to make sure that we have an emergency fund in place. That is 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses that you have sitting in cash or in some kind of a low-bearing line of credit so you can tap into if there's an emergency. If you do not have that in place, as I mentioned before, you're going to go back into debt. It's going to dramatically impact your cash flow.
What a shoebox.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what it is. The only problem is it declines in value.
Okay, but it's still safe there too.
Unless it burns. Put it in a safe.
Exactly.
Put it in a safe, in a fireproof safe.
Yeah.
So protecting your cash flow by having an emergency fund. So let's see if this works. Oh, it does work. Protecting your cash flow. This is for anybody that's, no one here, because you guys are at work today, so no one is retired, so we don't have to talk about that. But if you are retired, if you have parents who are retired, a quick strategy is a cash wedge, meaning having 12, if you're collecting income from your investments, you want to have 12 months of that income in some kind of a conservative investment, meaning if a market does what it did in 2022, your income is coming from that bucket, not coming from your equities, so that the equities can rebound. That's what a cash wedge is, and that's really for anybody that's already in the retirement phase, actively pulling money out of their retirement, and that's one way to protect their cash flow. Protecting your life and your health. What is the most important asset that we have? Yeah, right, and our lives. Right, so what happened, Sandra, I moved here because I couldn't see you at all. That pole was in my way. What happens to your family if, heaven forbid, something happens to you? Can your family survive? Yes.
They have to acquire your debt, and lots of times
Yeah.
you have it.
Yeah, if you don't have things in place. So one way to protect that is to have adequate life insurance. And then the question becomes, how much is adequate? Anna, just explain insurance to me. This is what I get quite often. Do you got anybody has life insurance in place? Quick hand up. Okay. Usually I get that. And then what? Do you know what you have in terms of the type of insurance and the coverage and everything? And usually I get no. Okay. So you want to make sure you understand exactly what it is. Sometimes I see clients who think they have life insurance, but what they really have is accidental life insurance. Two very different things. Only 30% of debts are considered by life insurance companies as accidents. In some cases, in some insurance companies, even lower. You would have to literally be hit by a car on your way somewhere in order to collect accidental life insurance or for your family to collect. So if you have simple life insurance, that covers deaths for any reason, okay? So life insurance would protect in case of death. Disability insurance, sorry, it's a little bit faded. Disability insurance, it would give you a percentage of your income should you become unable to work for a period of time, right? Usually that's part of your group coverage. And then critical illness insurance is an insurance that's in place that pays you a lump sum should you be diagnosed with whatever condition is covered. The basics one is cancer, stroke, heart attack, okay? And it's sold in increments of $10,000. So you can have 10, 15, 20, 100,000, however you want, right? So a question for critical illness is how can your family handle if you're unable to work, number one, so you might have disability insurance, but then you might have to get alternative medication, okay? Unfortunately, my mom went through breast cancer 7 years ago now, or 8 years ago now, and the amount of money we spend as a family on alternative medication, naturopathic treatments, a lot of the medication for cancer is also not covered, even with your benefits, right? So that could be a solution for that. Again, it's really case-by-case basis. But I just want you guys to kind of, if you don't even understand what it means, let's make sure we get you educated as well on that. We just covered that. Oh, this is a quick example, which we don't have time for that. We just went over that. Okay, the next thing we want to make sure we have protected is your estate or whatever you have, a home, your bank accounts, your investments. And there's two key documents. And I do not care if you have a lot or you have nothing. If you're over the age of 18, you should have one of these two documents. Chances are, if you're under the age of 30, you think you're indestructible. Unfortunately, a year and a half ago, I had a 32-year-old client die suddenly without a will. His assets are frozen a year and a half later in courts. That's what happens when you don't have these two documents in place. So power of attorney would give someone an authority to access your your bank accounts, your anything really, should you become incapacitated to go in person for any medical reasons. Let's say you're in a coma. However, you're still here. So that's when a power of attorney kicks in. Your will is a document that kicks in if you pass away. So the only way a will is active is if it's accompanied by a death certificate. So it doesn't do anybody any good until there is a death certificate in place. These two documents, there is a million, and technically I'm not supposed to say this, there is 1,000,001 ways to get it done. You probably want to spend, especially if you have family and kind of all that, you probably do want to hire a lawyer once. It's usually a couple $100 to get this done, and it's proper, it's in place. They usually will ask you a bunch of questions. But if you do not have this in place, I just told you the repercussions of that. If you have children, under the age of, who has children under the age of 18 here? Hands up. Okay. Do you have, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Do you have a will in place?
Do I?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, good. Do you have a guardianship clause?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so that's why I'm saying that. So if you have children under the age of 18 and you do not have a will in place, and heaven forbid something happens to both you and your spouse, the kids literally go into custody of the courts until they can figure out the next of kin to take ownership or the guardianship of that. Right now, after COVID, just like everything, the courts are backed up. It could take, I don't know how long it could take, right? If they can have an emergency motion, maybe this can happen fast. But again, having that document avoids any of that. That document gets presented, next of kin is appointed in that guardianship clause, and children will continue without disturbing of their lives. Does that make sense? Okay, so now take a moment and answer quick questions. Under the protect section of this handout, do you have an emergency fund in place? These are simple questions, yes or no. Next question, do you have life insurance? And if so, how much and the term? Do you have critical illness insurance? Yes, no. Do you have a current and valid power of attorney and a will? And the last section, I think my slides got a little jumbled. Do you have tax strategies to ensure that your business or your personal income is taxed appropriately? I know that the slides got a little jumbled, but when it comes to taxes, if you're a salaried employee, what's the one thing you could do to minimize your taxes?
Add,
To your pension?
tell them to take off more tax.
Yes.
So by the end of the year, you're hopefully
Getting a bit of a refund.
getting refunded.
Yeah, so that's definitely one way to do it. If you're a salaried employee, the simplest way you could do this is contributing a little bit to your RSPs as an example. Yeah. So every dollar you put into an RSP outside of your pension, because the pension part, you're getting a tax break at source. But if you contribute anything on top of that, you're going to get a break at the end of the year. So let's say you're going to add another $1,000, just as an example. Chances are you're going to get about $300 back in a refund because you already paid income tax for higher income, and now you're doing an RSP contribution which lowers the taxable income. That's what an RSP contribution does. Okay. Anybody here runs some kind of a small business? Okay, you don't have to answer that question, but if you do, there's other tax planning strategies. That's all I'm going to say on that, okay? So you want to make sure that you understand also tax implications of certain things, okay? And then, again, if you answer no to any of these questions, right now create an action plan for yourself. I need to address this, write it out, and by when, And if I don't know how to address it, can you think of someone that can help you? Okay, so that's the protect section of it. How are we doing for time, guys? Anybody? Ah, my Lord, beautiful. Excellent. I can slow down and take a breath? Okay. The last part, and being here at the beginning of the year, by the way, I usually do come in once a year, and I think it's been 3 years because of COVID. So you will see my face more often. My job is to really help you guys plan, to help you, support you in terms of whether it's retirement planning, tax planning, whatever that is, above and beyond the pension relationship we might have. Feel free to call on me. We can do Zoom meetings, in-person meetings in the boardroom, however that looks like. But planning is a huge part of what I do. And it's great that I'm here in January. So who has money goals for 2023? I did not say resolutions, because resolutions by about another week or so, they go out the window. I'm talking about money, like goals. Who has money goals that they've set for 2023? Anybody? Okay? Write them down for yourself there. Okay? What we want to make sure, whatever those goals are, we want to make sure that we've turned them into SMART goals. What that means is we want to be specific. So if my goal is, what's my goal? I want to go on vacation. Okay, that could be my money goal. I need to be a lot more specific than that. How much money do I need? How do I measure if I have enough money? So, okay, I need to have a savings account perhaps, and I need to set some money aside. Is that achievable based on my budget? Let's say I want to go away and I need X amount of dollars. Let's say I need $5,000 to take my family on a trip. I don't know if you can go far these days on $5,000, but okay, let's just play with that number. Is it achievable, realistic, and timely? I want to go next month. Can I save $5,000 in order to go on my trip? Right? So that's how you take a goal and you turn it into something that's actually actionable. Does that make sense? So the question is, have you created any 2023 SMART goals? Not just goals. And if you haven't, can you take one of your goals and turn it into a SMART goal? And, I get asked this question all the time. Anna, why plan? More than 51, this is a survey done by Financial Planning Standard Council. More than 51% of people that reported in this study say that they lose sleep due to financial stress. Have you guys had a sleepless night because of worrying about the markets, the interest rates, paying your bills? Everybody has had one of those nights? I know I've had, right? So 51% of us lose sleep over money. So if we can set some goals, something that we can achieve, something that we can get behind, it could alleviate some of those sleepless nights. 33% of the surveyed say that 31% of their sleepless nights have to do with health issues as well. And their stress around money led to health issues, I should say. Okay? So our financial well-being, it's why I call it the harmony of money. Our financial well-being has, unfortunately and fortunately, a massive impact on all aspects of our lives. If we're stressed out about money, are we going to be present with our kids at dinner? We're in our heads stressed out about money, right? Are we present at work? It's why Terry has me here, because she wants you guys to be more productive, right? If you're stressed out about money, you might be thinking instead of being productive and present at your job, right? You might develop health issues. You might develop, an unhealthy relationship with your partner because you're constantly fighting and not being on the same page around money. Okay? So, and then, to some degree, it also could lead to different types of substance abuse. Okay? So having your finances organized is absolutely crucial. The other thing that I would strongly suggest is whatever SMART goals you want to create, try to find a way to put them into an automated plan. What I mean by that is if I'm trying to save X amount for my vacation and it's achievable and I can do it, what I'm going to urge you to do would be to set that so it comes out of my pay every time I get paid and it goes to a separate account. Once I've reached that objective, I can go on my merry way and enjoy my family vacation. But automating it, because what happens if you're like, I'm going to save money at the end of the month? What happens with the money? We spend it, right? So that's the old, some money principles never go out of style, and that is paying yourself first. I think it's the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book that I read, I don't know, however many years ago. But one of the basic principles is paying yourself first. Whether you're a salaried employee or a business owner, pulling enough money for yourself to reach your financial objectives. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So that's it. I told you I'm going to be brief. Let's talk about the last section in there. So the last section, please circle your answers. Do you have smart money goals? Yes or no? Did you create a smart game plan to reach your definition of prosperity? Okay, and my definition of prosperity is having abundance in all areas of your life. So we're not just talking about money, but how much money do you need in order to have satisfaction in all areas of your life? Do you have any strategies that are automated, saving strategies that are automated? That's the last question in there. And again, if you answer no to any of those questions, create a little action plan for yourself. Okay? So in my opinion, and again, doing this for 20-something years, teaching like this, for most of that time, running my private practice, in my opinion, with all my experience, really having the balance in your income, expenses, risk, your debts, protecting your family through life insurance, estate, and taxes, and then planning. If you have those three things in place, I strongly believe that you'll be able to reach that space of like, oh, okay, life is good. I don't need to have circular conversations with myself about my financial well-being. Oh my God, wake up at 3 a.m. Oh my God, if I get hit by a bus, what happens to my kids, right? Oh my God, I need to do this. Someone called me, the house is burning down, I need to send $20,000. I don't have any backup, okay? If you have these things in place, chances are when emergencies in life happens, you will have a higher opportunity to deal with it. Okay, now I am going to go and ask questions because I want to make sure that this lands with you guys. Did everybody create an action plan? At least one thing. Anybody is willing to share it? It's private, so I'm not expecting. That's why I said that. Okay, any questions around your pension specifically? Nope. Okay, I'm going to be around. If all these questions are private, I'm going to be in the boardroom for at least about an hour or so, depending how many of you need to see me. I know there's a few of you that actually want to sign up for the pension, so I do have to speak to you guys. I'm not sure who it is. Okay, perfect. I do need to speak to you guys so I can help you choose the right investment options. But really try to take this to heart and try to apply this. And again, as I said, myself and my team. So just to give you guys perspective, usually you'll see me. My immediate team is my administrative assistant, which is Maria Foreman. Most of you have probably communicated with her. There is also a team that I work with. I've created a company called Prosperity Retreats, which is a company that produces retreats and also does a lot of education in all areas of your life, me being the money person in that picture. So that I have my team member from Prosperity in the back who's recording our event today. And then we have a massive team at Keybase that works with us in terms of administration, processing our trades, compliance, and legal team. And then we have, for your particular pension, you also have a large team at McKinsey that's working for you guys as well. So although you just see me, there is a huge amount of people behind the scenes to make sure that whatever my commitment is to you guys gets actually delivered, that we have the returns we're looking for, and if we're building money plans, that we're actually going towards your money plans. Okay? So I'm going to leave it at that. I know Terry, sorry, Terry. Oh my goodness. I'm going to leave the building now.
Anne has written a book, and there's copies available. I picked them up for anybody who would like one. I read the book a number of months ago, and at first I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to be boring, and I'm not going to want to read this book, but it's done really, really well, I have to say. She takes two couples with the same financial status, same age, and then follows them through their whole lives, basically, one with a financial planner, one group, and then the other one without. And it's just, it was a lot of information that I took that I found was good for me too. It explains all the different types of investments, and it went through this very, very quickly. There's probably a lot of questions that people might have if you were trying to understand all those investment opportunities. This book is really good. It's not big, it's easy to get through, written really well. So I just wanted to leave that with you. I was so impressed that I thought, I gotta get a bunch of these and let people take them if they really want to understand how do I invest and what does it mean. So I'll just leave it with that.
Well, thank you, Terry. She's making me blush.
That's why I bumped into you in the bookstore. You're selling your book.
I wasn't no, I think I was there with my kids.
Another
Are
year.
you signing them too now? Signing at bookstores?
No, maybe COVID took that opportunity out. But yeah, it is a book that was written, I wrote it a couple of years ago, but it was around, there's so much information out there, and I feel a lot of it is very convoluted. Unfortunately, my industry makes things complicated, and sometimes more complicated than they have to be. Right? To me, I think I started writing this book. My son right now is 13. I think when I started writing it, he was like 7, maybe. I'm like, if my kids can get what I'm getting at, this is how financial information has to be deciphered. It needs to be simplified. Hence, the name of my firm is Simplicity. It needs to be simplified. It needs to be accessible to everybody, not just to people who can get through the jargon. So investing is not scary and complicated. Making money is not scary and complicated. And that was kind of the premise of that book, is like, if you do have some people on your side that can help you decipher the information, and a lot of financial planners are accessible, are nice and friendly. I don't think I'm the only one. I would be lying if I said that. But working with somebody that can truly help you along the way can make a big difference. And we're not just working with people that have a couple of $1 million to begin with. I personally like working with families who are, let's get you started. And I've been working with some families for, 15, 20 years. Most of them, I don't like bragging about myself, but most of them will probably tell you they have more money than they ever anticipated because we've done planning, we've structured things properly, and the markets have returned what they needed to return. So there's a huge value of working with somebody for a period of time. I'm going to leave it at that. And yeah, a lot of the slides that I went through, guys, can I borrow this for a second? Like, a lot of the slides that I went through today are literally in this book. So there's a whole section about investing. You know how I went through cash, bonds, and stocks? It's literally in here. So I literally took the exact same slide. So if you want to read through, because Anna, you were like, shoo. It's just pick up copies. And thank you, Terry, for getting a bunch of these.
That's not the main section, main part of that book either. There are some diagrams, but it's written really easily for people to understand. So it's not that, it's written easy. That's what I was impressed about. It's not just graphs and all kinds of technical information. Yeah. It's a story that you can relate to. So I think that. And then one other thing, Anna is a certified financial planner, but there are other people who you might think are great to help with you investing, but they have a code of ethics that they have to adhere to. And some of these other groups might not necessarily do that. I'm not sure, again, I can't remember who they are, but you might just kind of give them a bit of a warning, just to say, just be careful, know who you are working with.
I think, it's interesting. I was just at a compliance conference a week ago, and what still baffles my mind in Canada, it's still legal for Joe Blow, who just graduated, to call himself a financial advisor. So just ask questions. And part of this book is looking at the titles and what they mean to you. So there is a section that talks about how do you choose the right person to work with. To me, hiring somebody to look after your finances is a long-term marriage. So you want to make sure you're interviewing the person, go on a couple of dates, and then figure out if this is a good relationship for you. But you want to understand their background, their education, and what type of clients they work with, and match it with what you're looking for, right? A financial advisor, there is really no education required or no background. Money coaches, same idea. A certified financial planner is supposed to be somebody that's accredited through the Financial Planning Standard Council. We need to do a number of courses every year. It's a similar designation to an accountant. And we're knowledgeable in all areas. from tax planning, estate planning, investing, how to put it all together. So depending what the complexity of your situation, you want to hire that appropriate person. You might be dealing with an insurance person. Unfortunately, I'm an insurance advisor as well, but unfortunately, if you're just dealing with an insurance person, every solution they're going to present to you has to do with insurance. And to me, that's not always the right approach. You want to work with somebody that looks at your picture and has the capacity to pull in the products that are necessary, not just to be kind of narrowed in. Like if you're working with somebody, as an example, at a bank, at a retail branch, they can only sell products of that bank. And maybe those products are not appropriate for your situation, right? So you just want to understand who you're working with and if it matches what you're looking for. And she helps people heal money wounds because we all have our predisposed ideas of what money is, what wealth is. As an example, if you were growing up, what is that one thing that your parents always told you? Money is like, I know a lot of us probably heard things like, yeah, money doesn't grow on trees. Like what's another one that we've heard? Money is evil, right? Destroys people, corrupts people, right? All those things. So what she does is she looks at what are your money beliefs and how do they impact the decisions you're making, right? So we co-authored a book where first part of it is really looking at your understanding of your money scripts or what drives your financial decisions. And the second part of the book is saying, okay, now you have a little bit of an understanding of what your financial beliefs come from. Now, what are some of the things you can put into place to have a better harmony around your wealth? So this book is kind of a combination. And I actually brought it. I figured I'll give it away. But let me ask a really good question. Hold on. Let me just think here. And we just talked about it. What are the 3 types of insurances we can have in place? 3 types of insurances.
Life insurance, critical life insurance.
I'm going to let him have a chance to answer. Life insurance. Critical illness. What's the third one?
Disability?
Yes. Okay. And I'm sorry, your name? Is it Matt? Matthew? Okay. So I'll give this to, so yes, 3 types of insurances. Enjoy the read. Second question I'm going to ask for a second book. What are the 3 types of investments we can have, 3 types of buckets we can invest in? 3 buckets. There's 3 buckets. What are those 3 buckets? Yes.
Savings, bonds, and stocks.
Yes. Or cash, bonds, and stocks. Wonderful. Thank you. I'll be around, as I said. I think that's it. I don't want any more compliments. I'll call it at that. And I think it's close to 1 o'clock, right, for everybody to get back into work. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll be back soon.